We've talked about this before, but are these tensions with Putin and Russia, and given what Liam Halligan's just said about the sheer amount of energy, in particular, that comes out of Russia to the West, does this hasten a bit of a rethink about the UK's energy policy?
Yes, it does. And not just the UK's energy policy, it's actually Europe's energy policy. I mean, the country that is most affected, Nigel, by this is, of course, Germany, who has been increasingly reliant on imports and who decided, for reasons which were local political reasons, to shut down their nuclear power stations early and, of course, have shut down their coal-fired power stations. So for Germany, they are hugely dependent on imported gas, and the fact that there are sanctions now taking place, the refusal to open Nord Stream 2, whilst I quite agree with you, there is Nord Stream 1, and by the way, there's a gas pipeline that comes through Ukraine as well. I mean, that is actually a big about turn for Germany. What one can't do, though, Nigel, is actually turn back the book and say, well, there are decisions that were made that were wrong, there were policy that had not been thought through. What they have to do now, us and Europe as well, is actually make some really firm decisions about how to become more self-sufficient, less reliant on imports. And if that means you keep your nuclear power stations running and you actually keep your coal-fired power stations running for the time being, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, where can Germany turn next? As you say, the political movement against nuclear in the wake particularly of Fukushima, not that I thought it was that relevant, but hey, that opposition to nuclear power is huge in Germany. It's, of course, completely the opposite in France. I mean, presumably the Germans have to start mining coal again.
Well, they are mining coal right now. I read an article not so very long ago that that's exactly what they were doing, which one wonders actually what the Green Party and the very strong Green movement in Germany, and of course they are a coalition as opposed to a coalition of lots of different views, and that's why some of these policies have been made the way they are. One wonders what the Greens are thinking now, because they have one of three choices. You either keep your nuclear running, you restart your coal-fired power stations, or you get cold and you shut down some of your industry. And it is literally those three choices. Yeah. And yeah. It's come to a pretty past when the great economic powerhouse of Europe, which Germany is, you know, a fantastic job that it has done in the whole of that manufacturing space, has made the sort of shambles of its energy policy that you would, dare I say, expect for a third world country, you know, and it's going to have ramifications right around the piece, this.
And coming back home, of course, it's interesting to think that Nicola Sturgeon, to maintain her majority in Scotland, is, of course, in alliance with the Scottish Green Party. And that has seen an SNP who talked under Alex Salmond's leadership endlessly about the riches that would come from oil, that meant Scotland could be independent and rich. And now the political mood music in Edinburgh, and indeed, it's not terribly encouraging from Westminster either, has led to that big Cambo oil field project being scrapped. I can't see Sturgeon necessarily changing her mind quickly, but do you, with all your political experience and knowledge of people in politics in London, do you think the atmosphere is right now for a different debate, perhaps about gas extraction, perhaps even about the North Sea?
Yes, I think it is ripe for a real change of view, and to some extent some quick changes of view. I have noticed that within the political environment, the discussion about, you know, alternatives are best and we need that, all that sort of thing, that seems to have really quietened down. I wouldn't bank on Nicola Sturgeon to do anything other, Nigel, than stand on some sort of public platform and say that the English have a right to keep Scotland supplied with energy. You know, just like we're supposed to be paying their pensions if they go off and do their own thing. You know, I mean, she does that. I think there's something where she says they want to keep on testing, so we've got to pay for their testing. Well, frankly, it's kind of nuts to that. You know, we live in the real world, and she may stand on platforms, but that isn't the real world. The real world says that right now we've got to do everything we can to extract whatever we can in way of gas out of the North Sea.
Yeah.
And when you look at the price, that does mean that some of those wells which have not been particularly economic must now be economic. It must be well worth the while as well to get more gas out of some of the declining wells. I mean, it's more complicated business. It costs more money, but you can do it now. And if she won't grant drilling licenses, then we've got to grant drilling licenses. We have to do that. We need more gas during this transition. The focus has never been on transition. And if you say that something good comes out of every crisis, realism about energy is going to come out of this one.